Hey, how's it going with you?
Doing great. How are you?
Terrific, terrific. Checked out your film No Escape. I love this film because it was giving me vibes of a '80s movie called April Fool's Day. I don't know if you ever seen that.
You're the second person that's told me that today, and I have never seen it, so I need to see it now, I
Well,
think.
you definitely will have to see it because it's one of those cult classic films, and this was giving a lot of those type of vibes. So it was great.
Oh, thank you. I can't wait to see it. I've got it on the list.
So tell me where the or origins of this story came from.
Sure. So my first feature was called Escape Room, and it did pretty well internationally and in the US, released by Lionsgate. We were looking to do a follow-up project to that, and we had put together a script for sort of a more straight escape room movie, bigger than the first. But it felt sort of like a tired idea because Sony had come out with a movie and a couple of other escape room movies had come out. And at the time, I had been watching a bunch of vlog stuff. So, like Casey Neistat, I don't know if you know who he is. I had seen Logan Paul, but not very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
And I found those people fascinating. They're, these people that create their own persona in life, and then that affects them as a person outside of it, and it seems circular. And I got to know a few people like that in LA. So that seemed like a cool jumping off point because the whole thing with social media is creating a false reality, and that's what an escape room is. So that was sort of the genesis of it.
Absolutely. I mean, I did see your other film, Escape
Oh,
Room. So, and I know there's a sequel coming out called Escape Room 2. So I was telling somebody who was like, this must be like Escape Room 1.5 because it had like the nearly the same type of structure or ideas.
sure. Yeah, we wanted to do something where the escape room was just one piece of it. The idea of some evil person doing something terrible to all these people in this very heightened environment is a tough thing to pull off. I think the larger escape room film, Adam Robitel's Sony film, does a pretty good job of it on a big scale. But we wanted to kind of shy away from that, so create a world in which this plausibly could happen to somebody. Experiential entertainment has become such a big thing, and vloggers are often given these crazy opportunities to go places and do gnarly things. So yeah, I think it fit.
I think your film worked, and maybe it's just me. Maybe it's my sick and twisted mind because I like the violence. I like the gore. I mean, this was giving me the vibes from like the Saw franchise and
Hmm.
all those other franchises that we the sick and twisted torture devices and so
Sure,
on. Talk about how you didn't really have to pull punches for No
sure.
Escape.
Didn't have to pull punches, but importantly, it's all from Cole's perspective, the main character. So a lot of what is effective in the movie, I think, is unseen. It's like either the aftermath of it, or things that or you think you're seeing because he's seeing them. So yeah, to me, it's sort of less is more. Not shying away from it, but showing less is always scarier, I think. Especially when you look at a film like Saw, I think the first one is the scariest one. As those keep going, it got so graphic and gross. They start being kind of funny. They're not they're not very scary anymore.
Yeah, but yours wasn't funny. It was actually scary. I mean, it was so bloody. I mean, you
Thank you.
you must have enjoyed doing all that for sure.
Yeah, it was fun. The some of those scenes were big surprises to me. Even George Jenko in the movie um, really brought it for his sort of death scene. Everybody really brought it. Holland was a real champ in that water tank. That's not an easy thing to do, and she stayed in there for 2 days while we filmed that. So yeah,
Yeah, tell us about what goes on in your war room or in your head. How do you come up with all these devices and traps? I mean,
sure.
you must have interesting dreams and nightmares going.
Well, for this movie, it was intentionally referencing other movies like Saw and Hostel, because again, from the character's perspective, he's a fan of horror and he's a fan of these things, and so doing things that are loosely based on that was important. But I don't know, just you try to think of what the scariest possible thing is, and water coming up and having nowhere to go is pretty terrifying, especially when your friends can see you and not do anything about it. Um, similar to being, strapped into something with something coming at you, that being powerless is terrifying. And that's where that
So,
comes from me.
so when you create some of these contraptions, how do you guys pull it off on set, and how much safety is is paramount for these actors?
Safety is hyper important. There's a stunt team there the whole time. Most of them, almost everything except for some of the falls, the actors wanted to do themselves, and they were able to do. There's some clever visual effects too, but I don't like to lean on that stuff too much. So for the most part, it's just practical things like the spike coming at his eye. There's just a hard stop where, as long as if his head's kept in one position, it can't hit him.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah.
So what was the most difficult scene to actually,
To
portray
film.
to film for yourself?
There were a couple that were really difficult, and they're never the ones that you would think. There's a scene where he goes up on the roof and is sort of by himself, contemplative. That was this long monologue originally that we ended up reshooting 3 times because it just didn't really work. And then you figure out you don't even really need it. So those are always the hardest things. But some of the action pieces, some of the end was quite difficult without giving anything away, because you have to shoot it in lots of little pieces. The water tank sequence was quite difficult. Just finding all the little stuff that you need and having the water raise at the right speed and things like that. It's a lot of, there's 60 people making that happen, which is what's so neat about filmmaking. It's everybody concentrated on one goal.
So you really put Holland in a tank for 2 days. I mean,
Uh-huh.
that is such a trooper. I mean, tell about this Houdini process that you had to create.
Well, we had an amazing team that created a circulating water stream, so we could have it stay at one level with water still coming in. She was such a trooper, and we'd be like, "You need to get out," and she'd be like, "No," and she went under the water and just opened her eyes immediately, which I don't know if I would want to do in sort of dirty looking water, but it seemed like she had a blast doing it. So just get excited actors, and then the process is easy.
So excited that I've read that she's in the in the escape room sequel. So
she's in the Sony escape room sequel that happened right after we were done filming. So when it rains, it pours for her, I suppose. Lots of escape room.
Tell me about the production set. Where was all of this film? It looks like it's filmed like in some kind of sound stage for yourself, right?
A few different locations all around Los Angeles. We were at Ontario Airport for all the airport stuff. There's pre-built planes in Los Angeles, and then we shot a place called Redemption, which is a set of stages near the Burbank Airport, and then kind of all over LA for some of the restaurants and stuff like that.
Now, when you wrote the story, because supposedly the villains are Russian and they travel all the way to Russia for this event, why did you choose Russians as sort of like the adversaries?
Well, Russia has been portrayed a lot in action movies and probably in horror, all kinds of movies, as a very specific thing, I think, to Westerners. So it's also the language barrier is so large. There are a lot of non-English speakers in Russia, and I don't know very many Russian-speaking English, Americans. So we wanted somewhere that would really divide them. Also wanted somewhere, where we could cast real, and in this case, real Russians. They all speak fluent Russian. They're all either from Russia or the surrounding areas, to make sure it didn't feel inauthentic to the space.
And then you casted Ronan to basically translate.
No, yeah, well, Ronan grew up in a Russian-speaking household.
Oh,
So
really?
Yeah. And one of our camera ops spoke Russian, so he was sort of my ears and was able to let me know if they were saying what I thought they were saying, because I do not speak Russian. So.
that must have been a very challenging thing for you to do, especially you wrote the film, part of the film, to be in Russian, but you don't even understand what's going on. Yeah.
I had to really trust people, and luckily once we finished it, we were able to show a bunch of Russian speakers, and they are in fact saying what they're supposed to. So nice surprise.
So when I think you mentioned that this is your second feature film, right? So what did you do differently in this film that you learned from your previous film?
Sure, I think you learn to trust people more. No one can do these things alone, and you trust the process of getting feedback and notes a lot more. I think a lot of first-time directors want to seem like they're in charge, and they think that that means not taking input. When in fact, you learn pretty quickly that as long as you can filter the input, it's going to save you from yourself later. So that's a big thing. And then learning how to sort of shift strengths into a larger production and crew. Directing a small movie like Escape Room is a lot of DIY and grit, and directing a bigger movie like this one is a lot of managing and understanding exactly what you want. So that was the biggest thing for me, probably.
You always have this love for horror?
I love good horror. I'm not like a horror junkie, but I love genre bending horror, like Seven is probably my favorite, or like Alien. And horror, there's a long, wonderful tradition of horror in Hollywood. You know, it's sort of something that never goes away, and it's saved Hollywood a few times. We were in, at least in the last few years, a renaissance of that, I think, and seeing really good horror. So yeah.
Excellent. Could you talk about a little bit about the cinematography, basically, because you have to switch from different camera works,
Sure.
not only, you know, your digital camera, but you had security cameras, us watching everything on the phones. You know, talk about the
Sure.
challenges of all that.
There's, I think, 7 different formats shot. A lot of Apple gave us a lot of products, so all the phones are sponsored Apple product, and we shot quite a bit. You know, a lot of the times when you see him filming, he's actually filming, and then we're replacing whatever's on the screen. The whole thing was shot. This is 2 years ago that we shot, and we did a full 8K workflow, which hadn't been done a ton at that point, especially for a movie this size. But yeah, it got pretty complicated making sense of all of it, you know, screens within screens and things like that. But luckily we planned a lot, so it went well.
And before I start to let you go, one of the
Mhm.
things I do have to mention is Keegan was great throughout this entire film. Tell me why he was perfect. I mean, how did you basically figure it out? Like this is our social, this is our vlogger, this is our social media.
Sure. I think he's a fantastic actor, but he's also grew up around Hollywood. He understands fame in a very specific way. You know, his father is an actor, his mother's an artist, so he understands that side of it a lot. But he also has a very large social media following. So he's somebody that understands the give and take of that, and he sort of immediately embodied the part in a way that really made the film something special, I think. So he's been a blast. Now we're friends. He's a really nice guy outside of it too. He's cool.
Wow, that's great. And one more thing,
Mm-hmm.
because speaking of social media, you had to bring in a big social media star with George.
Yeah.
talk about the decision on bringing someone like that, you know, basically who has a very big social media presence into a film
Sure.
about a character with social media.
Absolutely. I mean, I think he was able to tell Keegan quite a bit about his specific um, relationship to social media, because George is basically the character. But George auditioned just like everyone else originally. We weren't going to cast a social media personality in that part, but he fit it really well, and it just seemed like an obvious fit. He's actually really good friends with Logan Paul, who some of this is written sort of loosely based on, and he came to see the movie and he loved it. So it was pretty meta to see Logan there with Keegan watching the movie. Pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Hopefully, they'll basically retweet or reshare your film to everybody else.
We
Well,
hope so.
well, hey, Will, hey, thank you very much for speaking with me. I can't wait. Hopefully, you get to do more escape rooms or whatever you want to do in these with these torture devices.
You know, you never know. More movies in the future.
Terrific.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next time. Bye now.
Cheers.